Sister Kate here. It's been a little while. It's been almost 2 weeks since I posted a video, mainly because it was that time of year when we have a big festival, a holy day, a feast day to celebrate. And so I was very, very busy with all of that. So now I'm back here in the orchard, planting a few plants, and the ducks are down at the pond, and so they're not in here right now. And I was checking on some of the plants that are growing here. Got some aronia berries. Whoa! Got some aronia berry bushes and some blueberry bushes and some fruit trees, and just checking on them. The drought broke, and so they got some water, and I'm just trimming off some dead limbs from blueberry bushes and so on. I wanted you to see my shirt today. Yeah, keep calm and biking on. And I wanted to, that's kind of what I'm doing now. The news is just a rehashing of all this nonsense about the different bills and who sponsored them and who is blocking them, and we want this and you didn't give us that, and there's no real news. Pastor did find online somebody, a scrapper, bought two, I think he said aircraft carriers, used, old, decommissioned, for $1 a piece. And we discussed that a little and said, how, even if you bought it for $1, you have to be able to deal with it. They're parked somewhere, I'm assuming at some bay or port, and then you have to have a way to access them. I don't know if you're going to have to pay port fees if you leave them there. A scrapper obviously is going to start dismantling them. Is that person going to be able to take them back to their dismantling area? Or are they going to have to do all that on the ships, and how much time will that take, and so on. But anyway, the Keep Calm and Viking on, I think some people misinterpret that a bit. This shirt does not mean keep calm and continue to rape and pillage. That's not what the shirt means, at least not to me. What the shirt means is have the tenacity of a Viking, have the geographical knowledge of a Viking, have a way for you to effectively get from where you are to where you want to be, and be able to overcome any obstacles that are in your way, like their ships. And study into Viking ships has proven that somehow, and it's probably just through how often they were using them, they figured out the best way for this ship to go quickly through the waves was not to be big and heavy like later ships were in the 1800s, these huge, massive, heavy, with oak, 6-inch oak beams in the front, architecture, but that they figured out a more flexible, lean-sided, meaning not very thick boards running horizontally, would cut through the waves and allow them to go faster. And they also figured out, I think there's like one picture of a Viking sail that is in a tapestry somewhere, and so archaeologists have sort of recreated that sail. It was a square sail. It had a certain, number of tassels on the end. I don't know all the details, but having recreated one and used it on a ship, Viking ship, made from the ones that they find buried, because that is where they get this knowledge, the ones that are buried in the funeral mounds and stuff, reveal to them how these ships are built. It's a really fast ship. It's like 19 knots or something when the wind is blowing and so on, which is fast with no engine at all. It's pretty. They were smart people. That's my point. And Viking on also means understanding your surroundings and being able to make maximum use of them. And so that's what this means to me. And I see neo-pioneering the same way. And if you don't think pioneering was hard, just play the game, Oregon Trail. You'll find out quickly that it wasn't all, Laura Ingalls Wilder. it was a very hard life, and people were often starting from scratch. And when you start from scratch, you have to build all your infrastructure. There's a book out there called Sod and Stubble. Can't remember if that's the whole title, but if you type that into Google, it'll come up. It's an excellent book on some pioneers who went out west. I forget if they're, I don't think it's Montana, it might be western Kansas. Anyway, it's the late 1800s. There were a lot of droughts, locusts, things going on while they were homesteading, and yet their homestead was very successful. And it talks about the different ways that they did things. The wife got a milk cow, then she started to make butter, and then she started to sell it and make cheese and so on. And it, so you have to work. It's not, wow, interesting. It's not going to be just I showed up and it all worked. And if you look at other people's homesteading videos, they say the same thing: chores, feeding the animals, cleaning up from the animals, doing vet checks on the animals, planting things, harvesting things, canning things, dehydrating things, building buildings, etc. But it's exciting, and it uses all this, and it uses this. Your knowledge and your strength is what creates your environment, and you learn things through doing it, just like the Vikings did, which allowed them to create technology that helped them do what they did in their world. I also saw on Instagram, and this relates, a picture someone posted, probably from India, two very tall, skinny cows with very interesting, like 1.5 horns, and a, what do you call it? The collar, the harness for these oxen. They weren't even oxen, they were cattle of some kind, was two parallel pieces of wood, and then an upright piece of wood that these two parallel pieces of wood were attached to, and the cows' heads were in between these parallels. So I imagine the whole thing could turn if you picture that. And I couldn't even tell how the cows were attached, but I'm assuming the, there's some sort of collar or rope that the cow's head is tied to both of these horizontal bars. And then again, it would allow them to move as a unit. And it was so old school, but it was such a practical, mechanical design. I just had to be like, oh, you used what you had and came up what what worked for you. Not like the big heavy collars that we have in America. And something else that I really like that I think you guys should look up is how they do horse collars and stuff in Russia. Because in America, everything rests right on the horse's neck and back. But in Russia, they have this like arch thing, and then that's what the harness and everything is attached to. I just love seeing how people solved problems throughout the years as they had to do, you know, the pioneering and the living in harsh conditions, the cold and the wet and everything else, before technology came along, and leather, and then nylon and everything makes it quicker and easier. All right, y'all. So get out there and Viking on, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to continue on with my day. All right, bless you. Shalom.